This is Wizard of Oz, Week 7, Part 2. Film class, Week 7, Part 2. Okay. The key thing about the thing that I find most interesting about the Wizard of Oz, I'm going to talk about right off the bat, which is the way it is a story twice told. It is a very unusual structure for a film, and people watch David Lynch movies, and you'll see some of his upcoming movies. You can see where he's getting this from, but it does something really unusual, which is that the Act 1 tells a story. It's got characters. It introduces all the characters in Act 1, and it's a little mini story. It's a pretty simple story. It's about a Judy Garland is a girl, and her dog has, bitten a neighbor, and the woman comes over, and she's angry. And she's powerful, and so she's maybe gonna, the family's quite poor, she can hurt them financially, and so they have to give her the dog, but then, the dog runs away and from the horrible woman, and then Dorothy decides her and the dog are gonna run away, right? And that's sort of, it's a story of a runaway girl. Now, it's solved real fast. She runs away, and she bumps into a fortune teller who is a con artist, but also a nice guy. He's a con artist with a heart of gold, which is adorable. He's a very sweet old man, and he basically tricks her into going home, right? He sort of finds out about her aunt secretly, and then he tells her how much she's hurting and how much she misses her, and he helps the little girl, and then the little girl runs home. So that's the movie. That's the end of the movie. And by the way, I hate to do this, and I'm going to be embarrassed for putting this on film, but I'm going to say it anyway. Homer's Odyssey and 2001: A Space Odyssey feature the same kind of thing, which is a protagonist who leaves home, goes very, very far away, and then returns back where they came from, armed with new knowledge. This is the crucial thing about Dorothy's song, the famous "Somewhere Over the Rainbow," which is one of the most beautiful songs ever written. And I can't teach that. You just have to. It's just gorgeous. I don't know. If you didn't see that, then wait a couple of years, try again. Maybe you'll see the beauty. And it's a great, great song. She's amazing. Judy Garland is just incredible, and it's a beautiful song. But the song, what's it about? Somewhere Over the Rainbow. She wants to go. She wishes she could get far, far away from home. So that introduces the primary conflict in the movie, right? She doesn't want to be here anymore. She wants to be somewhere else. And so she leaves, sort of spurred on by this mean lady who's being mean to her dog. Now, normally in a movie, you would expect her journey to take her, usually in a different kind of larger story. She would go all around the world, or she'd travel really far, and she'd have all kinds of adventures and scrapes and jams, and then she'd return home. When The Wizard of Oz, it's just like a miniature version of that story, of someone traveling all over the world and then returning home armed with. 2001 is a whole movie, right? They go very far away from home, all the way out to infinity, and then it comes back as a giant space baby. But the idea is the same. That Dorothy's journey is a little smaller. She basically gets a couple of roads down, and then this con artist guy sends her, but he was nice, and he sends her home, and that's the end of the story. It's like a short story. And the lesson of the story is, you learn, the whole movie's basically over at the end of the first act. You learn the lesson. It's pretty simple. Right, the moral of the story is that you may want to go very far away from home. You may wish you were somewhere else, but actually it's your family and the people closest to you and where you come from that really matter. That's a very common. I'll talk more about this at the end of this lecture series, but it's a very common theme in movies that the characters go. They wish they could go far away, and then they realize they have to accept it. I could give examples, but you probably wouldn't know any of the examples that are popping into my head. But like It's a Wonderful Life is about a guy who really wants to go far away, and then at the end of the movie, it's a great movie, by the way. But at the end of the movie, a great Christmas movie. Christmas, watch It's a Wonderful Life. It's fucking rad. Dark in interesting ways. But it's about a guy who wants to travel far away, and he's frustrated and angry because he can't get out of this small town. But in the end of the story isn't, yay, he gets to leave. The end of the story is he realizes that home is where he should be. And it's a very, very nice, sort of sweet ending. MASH, as a TV show, why am I talking about this? No one knows these shows. But MASH is a TV show, and there's a character, Corporal Klinger, who they're in the Korean War. It's the Vietnam War, but they're in the Korean War. And this one guy wants to go home, and the show's on for like 10 years, and he's always trying to trick the commanders into letting him go home. He dresses in women's clothing, so he'll appear to be crazy, and they'll send him home, and they never do. And then at the end of the series, he meets a lovely Korean woman, and he's going to sort of get married, and he can't leave. He ends up staying. So for 10 years he wanted to leave, and then at the end he learns that it's best to stay. Actually, it's a very common movie thing. It's a very simple kind of idea. The characters are sketched out pretty directly. Um, you've got the farmhand who's a coward. You've got the farmhand who's not that smart. You also have the farmhand who's a little mean. When the coward guy falls into the I never remember these guys' names. But when he falls into the pig pen, the other guy makes fun of him. So you got there's a kind of, he's not super mean, but he likes to joke. He enjoys when bad things happen to other people. He thinks it's funny. And those are the characters. You got Auntie Em, who's a little stronger than her husband. Auntie Em stands up to Miss Gulch more than the husband does. That's something that's going to become important later. You got Auntie Em, the husband's a little weak, and that's it. That's your story. It's pretty simple. You've got some simple themes set up in this little mini. The opening of this is a mini movie. Act 1 is a little mini movie, and I say that it's a mini movie because it ends. It really comes to a proper ending. Dorothy leaves home and then she returns, and it's basically over, except for the tornado, which causes all kinds of problems. But it's fascinating to me that the movie almost comes to a conclusion before heading into Act 2. And normally what you expect is Act 2 will develop the story. You normally expect she runs away from home, and then Act 2 is the whole adventure she has on the road. But here, she's come all the way back, and Act 2 does something really different in this movie. You know what? I'm changing my mind. Teaching this is making me like it more. Yeah. What else do I want to say? There's little cute little moments in here that establish some things that are worth paying attention to, right? Auntie Em and her husband are the chicks. The little chickens are going to die, and they incubate. Something went wrong with the incubator, and they're a little weak, and they may die. So this idea of taking care of little things, taking care of little creatures, they're really nice. You like them because they're worried about the animals, and you dislike the witch because she's mean to animals. This is the simplest way to get the simplest way. This is a good thing for your papers. Do this in your papers. How do movies teach audiences to like or dislike characters? The easiest way there's literally a screenwriting book, if you want to go to Hollywood. There's a screenwriting book called Save the Cat. And the joke is that it's not a joke. If you have the main character save an animal at the beginning, the audience will love that character for the rest of the movie. And if you have a character who's mean to an animal, they'll never forgive. So they do this real simple, that Auntie Em is caring for those little chickens who might die, and so you like her. And Mrs. Gulch is mean to the dog, and so you don't like her. Really pretty simple. It's a pretty easy story. This is not a complicated thing. It's going to get complicated, but it's not complicated yet. Okay, and I think we basically got everything that I want. Oh, and I forgot to mention, so we have the guy who doesn't have brains, the guy who's a little mean, he laughs when bad things happen to people. We got the guy who's a coward. We have sort of the mean old woman. We also have this kindly con artist, right? This nice guy who's, he's kind of stealing money from people, I guess, by pretending to be, someone who can see things in a crystal ball, but he's just making stuff up. There's no fucking, that's ridiculous. And yeah, okay, so that's the movie, and it basically comes to an end. This is what makes The Wizard of Oz such a fascinating little thing, is it stops. And instead of Act 2 developing the story, right? So because it should be, right? So Act 1 of Rear Window, right, is that we meet the characters and they have relationship problems, and then Act 2, we discover this murder maybe across the way, and then that murder helps to develop the relationship tensions that have been set up, and then solving the murder solves the relationship tensions. And a movie, it develops the main plot. But this movie, Wizard of Oz, doesn't do that. It closes, and then it introduces there's a tornado. And at which point, the movie basically starts over again in a different key, in a different way. But essentially, the rest of the movie tells the same story, but in a much more complicated mythology version of the exact same thing. The actors come back, but they're now playing different characters. Some of the themes and the images come back. Remember that crystal ball? You'll see that crystal ball again. Remember the chickens they were worried about hatching? You're going to see things hatching in this movie. Remember looking after little guys? We're looking after little guys. Where the personalities of the people involved will stay the same, but their forms will be different. All right, we'll talk about it in the next video. I'm having fun. Maybe this. I like The Wizard. I mean, it's not like I don't like it. It's just that I like all the other movies more. All right.